Well, after the age of 60, 65, in a sense, we enter into INFJ, the INFJ later years, if you might call them that. And it's obviously a particular phase that I am not yet personally familiar with. Will become familiar with it at some point, hopefully, if disease does not prevent it. Now, the INFJ later years are going to be, of course, significantly colored by the choices that were made prior to that specific phase. I think it's easy to imagine that the spiritualized INFJ will continue to spiritualize and find that particular sequence rich and still full of things to explore. And you know, the advantage that the spiritualized INFJ, if we can call it an advantage, will have over the other sub families of INFJ is this ability they will have to look back and see, across time, the tracing of a legacy. This notion of a legacy is intimately tied to that of the life project. By having a life project, some kind of unified, consistent, and devoted life project, the theme of the legacy appears on the scene as well, and this is where the meeting between ego and ego ideal happens. This is the full alignment. This is the full, if you like, synchronizing between the ego and the ego ideal that brings a sense of peace, that brings a sense of satisfaction and courage in the face of what may happen in later years, with its own set of difficulties and challenges. It will be harder for those INFJs who have not followed the path of spiritualization. I can well imagine that an INFJ who has remained compliant will find in retirement a clear degree of comfort, in the sense that they will be freed from many of the demands of society that they had to comply with, and that they never found the inner strength to openly challenge and depart from. Now they're essentially in a phase where they can pursue more of the things that they always wanted to pursue, what you may call NI pursuits. It can be reading, it can be spirituality, it can be engaging with nature more, it can be pursuing any number of activities that maybe or probably they could not fully devote themselves to before, in the name of compliance with the larger group. So there is a comfort there for the compliant INFJ in their later years, but there is also a sense of something unfinished, a sense of something maybe even more so than unfinished, something that they didn't do, almost a kind of remorse, an existential remorse over the choices that were not made. And again, this is something that becomes obvious when they turn around, look back, and face the inevitable question of legacy. If you've not spiritualized, your existential legacy will be much more shaky, will be much more fragile, superficial, and vulnerable, including legacies of having done very well in your career. If you've done very well in your career as a compliant, this is likely not going to matter very much to you in your later years. And we know that people, particularly people on their deathbed, as they are getting close to death, never talk about achievements like these. They talk about what we would consider as resonant with individuation, and they talk about human relationships. They don't talk about anything else. So the compliant will be torn between that comfort that retirement brings, that extra freedom, and a sense of remorse or regret over the choices that were not made regarding what we call individuation. The solipsist probably has its worst. I mean, the worst hand is given the solipsist, because the solipsist will also have to face the question of legacy. But in terms of the comforts that old age or the later years, because we don't want to say that 65 years old is old age, but it's not clear that they will particularly enjoy that phase. Because first of all, what is the sense of discontinuity between what was prior and what was later? It's very clear in the case of the compliant can articulate a narrative to themselves as, I did all this, now I get to be free. Okay, well, for the solipsist, it's just more of the same, and there is a strong chance that the existential boredom that the solipsist feels by then is unbearable. So I don't know what the later years of the solipsists are like, but I don't think they're particularly good, which is why I would really encourage anyone who's tempted to solipsize to not do that, right? Maybe to see it as a step, to not beat themselves up if they are currently solipsist, but to not see it as an end, because it is not an end. Human relationships and self-development, development of one's inner self, enrichment of one's inner self, is what people care about as they approach death. And solipsism doesn't give any sort of substance to those issues. So it's something to keep in mind. Guys, don't forget that you can support me on Patreon. I'd be so grateful if you went to visit my Patreon page, had a look, and maybe considered contributing for a small amount every month or once a year. You get access to our Discord server, the Fourfold, where you can interact with me pretty much every day, as well as access my deep dives, the bonus videos I release every 2-3 weeks, exclusively for patrons, who are the ones who suggest the topics. Don't forget also about my books, The Infinite Soul, my latest one on INFJ life in the modern world. First link below. If you haven't yet, you should get it now, as well as my first book on the INFJ, The Ecstatic Soul, which is to this day the deepest investigation of the INFJ mind. Get these books. Please check my Patreon, because I could not do this without you, and I need you more than ever. And see you tomorrow, guys. Bye-bye.